moving right along. So the next segment is about cloud, the word cloud. Now, the word cloud can mean all sorts of things to different people. So without further ado, let's go to our panelists here, Brent and Stephen, and they're going to have a little interactive and tell us about the pathways to the cloud, of which there's options, there's different ways it can be done. So as I say, without further ado, let's go to Brent and Stephen and tell us about pathways to the cloud, please.
Yes, thank you for that, Grant. Yeah, so we thought for this segment we'd try a little bit differently and actually go through a bit of a process of the interaction that Stephen and I and the rest of our team, and we've had the questions that have been asked to us from our clients. And so we thought we'd just sort of go through this process here and actually go through those explanations, those questions. So Stephen, I guess the first thing which everybody asked us is Exo. Are they ever going to be moving to the cloud?
Thanks, Brent. Yeah, look, it's certainly a question we do hear echoed from clients from time to time. And look, I think it was great for James Brading to give his session around the ERP products and the stable of products that they have. In terms of direction, MYOB have clearly identified that Exo is a leading platform for their on-premise focus as an on-premise product focused as a Windows client installed application. And they've brought to market a new product called MYOB Advanced, which is their cloud product, browser-based and licensed on a SaaS model, a month-to-month software as a service model, versus Exo with its annual license fee model. So they're taking a little bit of a different approach in terms of saying, hey, look, Exo is and does what it does very well. We've got lots of happy clients using Exo. We have lots of clients who actually want to retain that feeling of control, the fact that they may well actually want to have their data sitting in their office. They may well want that certainty around that. And we have certainly another series of clients who perhaps are more wanting to embrace cloud technologies and perhaps wanting to embrace the browser-based solutions, particularly if you're running alternative desktop environments such as Mac OS or Linux and those sorts of environments as well. So no, MYOB Exo is remaining firmly targeted as a on-premise focused solution with a Windows server, Windows client type infrastructure. That said, there are mechanisms by which we can still embrace the cloud with MYOB Exo as our ERP platform of choice.
Right, and so that leads on to the next question. What are those options if we're going to move Exo to the cloud?
It's a great question, Brent. I don't think I even saw that one coming. No, look, absolutely. There's a number of options that we see around cloud, and there's lots of conversations that we have with clients in terms of what the different options are out there. And it can be confusing. There's lots of, it's a little bit like artificial intelligence and machine learning. It's amazing how everything has those technologies these days. I think I opened my box of Weet-Bix the other day and it said powered by artificial intelligence. But cloud's a little bit like that. Everything sort of talks cloud. So hopefully we can kind of unhinge or open the box a little bit and talk openly and plainly about some of the options that are out there. And just feel free to continue to use that Q&A button if there's some questions that you'd like to ask. There's no question that shouldn't be asked as long as it's on the topic of Exo, of course. In terms of those options, really we see four kind of main models. The simple connectivity model, which is probably what you're doing today, which isn't so much cloud, but about remote access enablement. Then when we move into actual cloud type options, we see the managed cloud hosting model, the private cloud hosting model, and the cloud as a service model. And just to kind of dig into those a little bit deeper, simple connectivity is just about exposing your Exo environment, be it on-premise, be it running on your own servers and your own infrastructure internally within your organization at the moment. But how do you expose that to your users who may be working remotely, who aren't in your office? And usually you're doing that through virtual private networks and remote desktop type connectivities. So as an enabler, those tools, very easy to configure, very easy to set up, and a very quick win for your organization if you haven't done that in terms of how do you help staff work remotely. Of course, in the last 12 months, that's probably become more important than ever. So most of us are probably doing this in some form. From there, we move into the sort of managed cloud hosting model. And this is a little bit different in that we're actually typically embracing a managed cloud service. And that managed service can actually be a shared service where we're potentially sharing that with multiple clients in a secure, segmented manner that we're getting the efficiencies of scale that brings. Now, Exo Hosted is a managed cloud hosting model that's provided by Enterprise and Kilimanjaro as two of MYOB's enterprise partners. That's a fully managed cloud solution for Exo. And you know, the approach that I put it is it's not coming from a pure IT perspective, but it's coming from the perspective of what's the best way to run Exo in the cloud. That provides access via either HTML5, so within your browser window itself, I can open up Chrome, I can be running that on a Chromebook, I can be running that on an iPad, I'm using a browser and I can actually run Exo within the browser, or via what we call remote app, which is a little bit similar to a remote desktop connection. It just simplifies that IT infrastructure, and firstly, it just removes the need for those sort of complex VPNs because it's using that HTTPS banking type security that doesn't need those local VPN clients. Of course, it does make a change in terms of the way that you fund your IT. You're moving from a capital expenditure type model, you know, where we pay for hardware every 3 to 4 years, big investment. We then have the maintenance costs associated with that. That might be ad hoc, or it might be a managed IT service. But we're moving that to a simple monthly cost. You know, reducing that maintenance on on-premise equipment, reducing that lumpiness of CapEx costs, and moving into an OpEx type model. Of course, that can also include things like Office 365. We strongly encourage, you know, that you find those collaboration tools that are going to help you in your business. And Office 365, certainly for our organization, with Teams and with SharePoint, has been a game changer in the last few years. In terms of private cloud hosting, that is a similar model, except the difference being is that it's a dedicated private environment for you to run your applications. It enables more complex integrations and more bespoke customizations or other line of business applications, and an increased control for you as opposed to a shared environment where there's less control. That is also available as an option with Exo Hosted. From there, we get, there's a bit of a screenshot of what Exo Hosted looks like within a browser window. This is on a Macintosh operating system running, I think that's actually Safari, running MYOB Exo in a browser window, no other requirements. In terms of cloud as a service, that model is where we kind of, you're getting the tools, you're getting the foundation, but you need to build on that foundation. It encompasses those sort of what you might have heard of as IaaS or infrastructure as a service, or PaaS, PaaS, platform as a service models, typically offered by Microsoft with their Azure solution and Amazon Web Services. There's a few other solutions out there as well that do something similar, but you're building your own virtual machine environments. You're building your own infrastructure on top of that PaaS or IaaS solution. And then configuring Exo within that environment, and then working out how you deploy that to your users. That might be via remote desktop, it might be through a remote app, it might be through a technology such as MYOB Exo's DCE, which is a lightweight connectivity model for Exo that doesn't actually require remote desktop services and has some licensing implications there. But it's just a different way to do it. If you have internal IT resources who are capable of managing or potentially already have a cloud hosting environment such as Azure or AWS, running Exo within that environment can be a very cost-effective mechanism for you. If you don't want to deal with that control, then maybe your managed service is a better way to move.
Great, thank you for that, Stephen. I think you pretty much answered my next question. Jump ahead, but that's all good. So then I think we'll jump across to the next question that goes afterwards. That you mentioned talking about other solutions advanced, and we talk about cloud SaaS systems that do connect with Exo. How do we go about with those options where there's support for those businesses as a SaaS option?
Absolutely, it's strange, Brent. It's almost like I'm reading your mind. Look, in terms of approaches for the cloud, one of the things that we really endorse is the approach of, MYOB Exo is often the brain of your business, but we want to look towards best of breed type solutions. In some respects, there was a pivotal change with Apple and the iPhone and them bringing the App Store to the world, in that we kind of moved from the concept of the single monolithic app that does everything to let's find the best thing for the right job, or the right thing that does the best job. And within Exo, within our connected services model and the ISV model that MYOB have, that's a little bit like what we're trying to achieve. MYOB Exo has its place within our organizations, but often there's particular vertical or particular industry requirements that we might have, or particular horizontal solutions or point solutions that we might need that can actually complement Exo within our business. So some examples of that might be in the manufacturing space, such as the example that Patrick shared with Auto Transform. Manufacturing is well managed by MYOB as a vertical industry solution, and MYOB integrates perfectly into MYOB Exo. It was designed for it. A similar product to that is Time Track for clients with field service requirements, or Opmetrics for clients with field sales requirements. In a similar way, we might have horizontal solutions or point solutions that work across all industries, such as Expense Manager for expense management, EasyCollect for accounts receivable workflow and automation. And of course, we've then got solutions such as Vexo for warehouse management. And really, it's about choosing the solutions that meet your business's pain points, or strategically where you're moving towards, leveraging those potentially in conjunction with Exo, either on-premise or in the cloud, whichever works, choosing the right collaboration solutions to support you as well, and ending up with a framework of different applications, line of business applications working together in harmony to suit your business requirements. The other model, of course, is the pure software as a service model. And that's taking the approach of looking towards MYOB Advanced as a browser-based SaaS solution. It is a different product with a different focus. It's a pure SaaS model, but a very broad functional footprint. In some respects, we're actually seeing MYOB Advanced go a little bit higher into the tier 2 market and have very large ASX listed and government organizations, and quite a broad array of organizations using that solution. And it does bring a different perspective to cloud technologies, access from your browser, a much more comprehensive app to enable field sales or field remote staff, a simple user-based licensing model. And there is an easy transition path from MYOB Exo, and of course, integrated into those same best-of-breed connected services that we talked to, which means, there can be a good transition within your business from Exo, potentially with some connected services. And if you feel that Exo, you're getting some pain points around that and need something with a little bit more of those sort of governance, control, automation, or workflow type solutions, potentially moving to Advanced at the time that you feel your business is ready for that sort of transition.
Great, well, thanks. So you had a little sneak peek of this last question there, so I hope you're prepared for this one. And I guess it comes down to that cost. What's the difference between having that original on-prem solution now moving across to the cloud? How does it impact on hardware, subscription services?
Yeah, look, absolutely. In terms of the pure, how do we manage our cloud hosting, our Exo hosting approach? Do we do that on-prem? Do we outsource that? Do we use a managed service? Do we use a cloud service? A lot of that at the end of the day is actually a combination of two things. It's a numbers game in terms of our current average CapEx over 3-4 years, plus the maintenance we pay on that internal infrastructure and the cost of those internal resources that we will have managing that in the time that they spend, and just weighing that up against the ongoing operating expenses associated with a subscription service to provide those. It is a different model. As soon as we get into areas such as the hybrid model and using connected services, and those sorts of areas, it becomes more about the value proposition, the overall value proposition, in that what we're wanting to do is really understand not just the cost associated with it, and typically there is some form of implementation and subscription cost associated with that, but really what's the value that it brings our business. More often than not, those connected services and even that concept of transitioning to advanced is it's actually about what business value that's going to bring, how that's going to match strategically with where we're going as an organization, and what pain points does that fix. Usually there's a value proposition there that we need to understand. What's the savings in terms of resourcing? What's the savings? What's the hard savings in terms of FTE costs? In some areas such as the warehouse, what's the savings per transaction in terms of picking costs, for example, and weighing that up against the investment. You need to be very careful and judicious in terms of how we manage that and evaluate that. But quite often we actually find that there's huge costs in that manual workaround, that friction, that pain. And really, if we want to take this model of moving towards being a connected business, it's about investing in the systems and the solutions and the technology that are going to support our high-performing teams with good processes that are in place.
Great. Well, look, thank you for that, Stephen. Appreciate you taking on those hard-hitting questions on the chin. And to all our attendees, I hope that answered a lot of the questions that you did have about the pathways to the cloud.